Yeah, the story of Noah always reminds me of the time where I almost got arrested. Now, I know you're thinking, what did this guy do? I didn't do much, but I almost got arrested. In the story of Noah, mankind was doing very poorly. People were people were corrupt. They were stealing from one another, and eventually God said, "That's it. We're starting over." Okay, Noah, you're the only guy around. I'd like you to take your family, build an ark. I'll destroy everyone else, and you're going to eventually rebuild society. You'll rebuild civilization afterwards. So everyone comes from Noah. They get on the ark, rains for 40 days. For another 300 or so days, they're just on the ark because the waters hadn't settled. And eventually, Noah sends out the famous dove. He sends out that dove, and as many people know, the dove leaves, comes back to the ark, and he returns empty handed or empty beaked. Nothing in there. So the Torah tells us that Noah reaches out his hand and he brings the dove back into the ark. A few days later, he sends the dove out again, and he comes back with that famous, beautiful picture of the sign of peace, which is an olive branch in its beak. Now, there's an interesting addition to the story, or there's a nuance that the Torah says specifically, which almost seems extra. The Torah says the dove came back to the ark the first time. He reached out his arm, he brought the dove in, and then a few days later he sent the dove out again. Firstly, a dove can fly on its own. Obviously, he had sent it because it could fly. It has that ability. So what was it necessary for him to reach his arm out and bring the dove back into the ark? It could have just flown back in. And on the other, and further, and maybe even the better question is, why did the Torah specifically say that Noah reached out his arm to bring the dove back into the ark? In order to understand this, we need to hear the story about me almost getting arrested. So one time I was studying in a yeshiva in New Jersey, and I wanted to get back to Baltimore for the weekend. So a friend of mine who also came from Baltimore, who was studying alongside me in the yeshiva, he heard about a guy in Baltimore who needed a van driven about a half hour from our yeshiva to be driven down to Baltimore. So it was perfect. He said, okay, I'm going to go. I'll get a ride, pick up the car, and I'll bring it down to Baltimore. It'll be great for us, great for him. So we get a ride about a half an hour, and the address we see on the side of the road, there was a 12-passenger van, and he told us the keys would be inside. Okay, it sounded a little shady, but we were young and whatever. So we get into the car, turns on, no problem. We're driving back because we had to go back for, I don't remember if it was the next morning we were supposed to go or 2 days later. We were going to leave from New Jersey to go down to Baltimore. So anyways, we're driving back. We're driving down Route 33 in New Jersey. And my friend was driving a little bit quicker than he should have been. So I remember it was at night, it was real dark, driving down Route 33, and up in the distance I see this big flash, this light from a spotlight off of a police car. And I was like, uh-oh, bad news. So we pull over, the cop pulls us over, and he asks license and registration. My friend gives him his license. I open the glove compartment, nothing in there. It's empty, no registration. So the cop goes back to the car, and then he goes back to his police car, and eventually he comes back to our car and says, these tags are no good. They don't match the vehicle at all. So we know we didn't actually do anything wrong, aside for speeding. But the cop tells us, sadly, he's like, I got to impound it. So you're out. I was like, now we're stuck on the side of the road. So he takes us out of the van, and I was excited because I knew we didn't do anything wrong. So I put out my arms, and he frisks us down, which he was planning to do. And eventually we actually asked the cop if he can give us a ride back. So he says, eventually he said he could, and all was good. The only thing is that we need to go down to the courthouse in order to get that impounded car and get a different license plate to put it on, that it was going to be legal. So we go down to the courthouse, and we asked a friend of ours if he can give us a ride to the courthouse. So the friend said, the only condition that I'll take you down to the courthouse is if you, meaning the driver who had been driving, my friend, if you are the one who drives down to Baltimore. And he said, no. He's like, I've had enough. I drove, I got my speeding ticket, I'm done, I'm finished. I don't want to do it. So my friend said, then I'm not taking you down to the courthouse, which would mean that we were stuck and that car was stuck in the impound lot. So eventually my friend gave in. And I was speaking to my friend, I was like, why was it such a big deal? Why was it so important that you make sure that he drives to Baltimore? He said, because I felt like if he wouldn't drive to Baltimore, it might take him so much longer to get in because he feels like he failed. He feels like he didn't he sped and he failed and therefore he's not going to drive. He said you can't do that. That's not a way. You got to start again. Even though if you messed up, you got to start again. So that's what he did. He encouraged my friend to get back into the car, and he eventually did. He drove the 12-passenger van from the courthouse down to Baltimore. That was perhaps the message that Noah and the Torah is trying to teach us. The Torah adds those extra words, not just to tell us, by the way, this is how the bird got back into the ark, but it's because he sent this bird on a mission. And the bird came back, and it was a failed mission. He messed up. He didn't succeed. He couldn't find civilization. He couldn't find a tree. He couldn't find proof that would allow Noah to feel like it's now time to get off the ark. He failed. He was a failed messenger. And Noah is teaching us that even if somebody fails, you need to give them another chance. You need to encourage them because you don't want them to never try again. Therefore, we need to give positive encouragement to say it's all right. You messed up and we'll get over this. It's okay to mess up. It's okay to make mistakes because we don't want people to get stuck in those mistakes and not to be able to move on to the next time. Not only is that good in treating others like that to make sure that they don't feel like they fail, but even if we fail, even if we mess up, don't be too hard on ourselves. We need to allow ourselves to know that we can succeed in the future.